know what that is? Anybody know what that is? Yeah, it's those videos or short videos, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, whatever it might be, or it, back in the day, what were those shows? America's Funniest Videos, right? Just reels or moments that either could provide like the best successes, the best moments that can make you smile, make you laugh, whatever it might be. Or, maybe you like fail shows where people make mistakes and they fall or something like that. I don't know. Maybe that's your highlight reel that you particularly like. Who knows? But we all love a good highlight reel. It filled our TVs. It fills our phones now, right? And we like to see those moments that are captured that otherwise would not have been captured, okay, that kind of bring a certain elation to our life, a certain happiness, and a certain joy to be able to recapture and see over and over and over again. We like a good highlight reel. In fact, to be honest, we have Facebook, we have social media. Even if it's not an actual video, that's what it tends to be. They tend to be the pictures or the moments that are the best moments, the best things that we want people to see. We want people to see the tidy sides to our lives, okay? We like the finished product. We like the polished result for people to see. We like those glorious moments in our lives, and we want to be able to highlight those things. Another way of saying is we prefer the mountaintop view, maybe a little bit more than the muddy trail it took to get up to that mountain, or the hard, grueling moments, the sweat and the tears and the blood that it took to get to that beautiful mountain and that beautiful view. And if we're honest, that's exactly how we like our faith as well, and we'll get into that here today. But first, our backdrop, our scene, what's taking place in our gospel reading today? Anybody want to take a stab at it? What does Jesus do? Well, he goes up a mountain, right? He goes up a big mountain, and who does he bring with him? Yeah, Peter, James, and John, kind of like his inner crowd, those kind of big disciples, and something really important happens on this mountain. What takes place? What happens to Jesus? Yeah, he transfigures. Today is Transfiguration Sunday, by the way. All right? Where we celebrate this moment where Jesus takes these disciples up the mountain, and he's transfigured before them. He shines, right? Brightly. Okay, they see for the first time Jesus in his heavenly glory, whatever that might have looked like in some amazing way, right? They got to see Jesus in his heavenly glory, shining brightly. And also a couple figures show up. Anybody remember who shows up there alongside of Jesus? Moses and Elijah. Okay? So we have Peter, James, and John going up the mountain with Jesus. Jesus showing himself like he's never shown himself before. Can you just imagine that sight? Jesus is transfigured into his heavenly glory. Imagine Peter's face, like this is it. Right? This is amazing. Okay? And then two really big, important characters in the Old Testament that they would have heard about, read about, looked to for advice, looked to for faith in all of Scriptures. Moses and Elijah show up. Talk about a highlight reel. Right? Old Testament highlights, Moses and Elijah, and then we got New Testament, Jesus, highlight reel, shining brightly. All right? Looking amazing. Not just being nomadic and traveling around, barely scraping by, barely having any money to get by with the disciples, right? Jesus doing all this hard teaching and making them do all these hard things here on the mountain. Whoa. This is looking pretty good. Okay, this is looking awesome. And so what is Peter's reaction to this amazing moment, this highlight reel of the whole narrative of the Old Testament, New Testament, this highlight moment of Jesus? What is Peter's reaction? Yeah, pitch some tents. Yeah, exactly. To stay. Okay, to stay in that moment, to capture it. Essentially turn it into a reel that you never have to leave. Okay? In other words, this is Peter saying, and we kind of understand this in context, this is the Jesus I want. This is the moment I want. This is what I want to be able to stay within. This is the Jesus I can accept. Because just prior to this moment, guess what Jesus was teaching his disciples would happen? Well, Jesus said he was going to suffer. He was going to die. There was going to be some hard days ahead, some hard moments ahead for Jesus, but also for the disciples. Okay? And here, just after Jesus having those hard words, projecting those hard experiences, maybe not being the Jesus that Peter really wanted or wants, the Jesus that's going to die, we have Jesus transform in front of him and Peter being like, okay, we can avoid all that if we just pitch some tents, okay, and we stay here, because this is what it's supposed to be. Let's keep the glory out of the messy world. Let's keep things tidy. Let's keep the glorious Jesus here, paired with all the Old Testament all-stars, right? Can you really blame Peter, right, for wanting to just stay there, capture it, for him to be saying that essentially this is the Jesus I want? In fact, we're actually not too unlike Peter. We want the glorious Jesus, do we not? We want the glorious Jesus. We want the God of Sunday morning, however you want to frame it. We want to capture Jesus and faith in all the warm fuzzies that we might experience. We want the Jesus safe from the chaos of the world, the messiness and brokenness of the world, maybe even safe from the brokenness of our own lives. We want a tidy faith. We want the nice sayings of Jesus, right? All the good feeling sayings of Jesus, but maybe we don't always want the Jesus that says some really tough words, okay? Maybe we want the Jesus that is risen from the dead, but we don't want the Jesus that suffered on the cross. We want the tidy faith. We want the glory of Jesus that kind of shoves the messiness of the world, that avoids the messiness of the world, or even the tough things and the tough words that Jesus has to say. But then there's a command from the cloud that interrupts this moment in Peter. Okay, anybody remember what that moment is? It's an echo of Jesus' baptism. This mountaintop moment, this temptation for Peter, just pitch some tents and stay. What does he say? What voice comes from?
This is my son, listen to him.
It was Paul speaking. But yeah, exactly. It was God speaking through the clouds, just like Jesus at his baptism, saying, this is my son, listen to him. In all things, the hard things, the nice things that Jesus has to say, the Jesus that says he's going to suffer and die, that Jesus is not going to stay on that mountaintop. Okay? He's not going to pitch some tents with Peter. He's already made it known what he's about to do. He's going to head to Jerusalem. He's going to go down the mountain. He's going to suffer and die. Listen to him. We'll do some comparisons here for the remainder of our time, a lot of our time here. But it's Peter's instinct versus the command. Peter's instinct in this moment, okay, when he's experiencing the elation of the mountaintop, okay, of the transfiguration of Jesus, his instinct is to do something, okay? And that's to build the tents. His instinct is to control the moment, control the Jesus that he wants, right? Make Jesus the Jesus that he wanted, not the inconvenient, tough Jesus that was going to suffer and die. But the command is really simple. Just listen. Just listen. Even when it's going to be hard to hear what Jesus has to say, even what Jesus has said he's going to do is going to be a hard thing to accept. The king that must go down the mountain. The king that must go up a different mountain. As you heard last week, to go up a different mountain where he would suffer and die. Peter's instinct is to do something, to control something, to make Jesus and form Jesus into something he wants, versus just listen to the Jesus, who Jesus is and what he says. Receive his words. And the reality is what this gospel is teaching us and showing us is that the glory of Jesus, the glory of the gospel, the glory of the good news of what Jesus did, the redemption of all of humanity, is not that he stays on the mountain, it's that he's willing to leave the mountain, just as he was willing to leave the heavenly places to walk among all of us. The glory of Jesus is that he doesn't cling to the tidy moments, but he walks back down into the dust and the dirt of the world. He walks toward the chaos of the world. He walks just after this story. He walks down the mountain and he comes across somebody that's demon-possessed. Talk about the chaos, messiness of the world, to heal that person. He walks down toward the cross. His glory in this world isn't revealed in shiny clothes, right? Jesus shines in that moment. But his glory is going to be shown not on the Mount of Transfiguration with all the shininess and brightness. It's going to be revealed with the clothes that are stripped from him. It's not going to be shown, this glory is not going to be shown by being served by Moses and Elijah on this amazing mountain, but it's going to be Jesus going down the mountain and becoming a servant who washes whose feet? His disciples' feet. The glory of Jesus and the glory of the gospel is not in a holy bubble, okay? But it's in the Jesus that enters the grind of our messy, broken, sinful humanity, all to save us. This is what the theologians like to call the theology of the cross. The glory of God that's revealed in a hidden way. The cross and the suffering of Jesus. So Jesus invites us, well, God, the Father, invites us to listen to Jesus. Listen to him. Follow Jesus down the mountain. Stop trying to build a faith that stays on the mountain, another way to put it. It means we have to follow him down into the grind. We need to follow Jesus into the mess, to love the broken, to love this world that he loved to death. We love a tidy faith. We love a tidy church, a tidy Christianity that may not always get our hands dirty. We love the idea of ministry without the messy reality of it sometimes. We might want to build our tents of comfort, might want to build our tents of safety in those moments. But Jesus is not in the tent. Jesus doesn't stay in the tent. He's not in the tent. He goes down the mountain, into the mess, into the broken world, into the chaos of the world, to love it, including yours and my own life. This is suffering love. It's not glorious. It's not tidy. It's the grind of life. Well, before we get too hard on Peter in his moment of wanting to capture it, there's something that God does that is actually pretty amazing for Peter. This whole moment is pretty amazing for Peter, James, and John, even if they misunderstood the purpose of that moment, of that event. It's something that God and Jesus does for you and me. Jesus does for us every single week. God gives Peter, James, and John a vision of this moment, this vision of heavenly glory, not so that they could stay there, but that they could have the courage and the strength to follow him into the valley. He gives us these moments, just like this these moments that Peter, James, and John experienced, this moment of him being transfigured before them. He gives us these moments in worship, in prayer, in hearing the word of God, hanging out on Sunday morning, not so we build tents, but to fuel us for the journey of the week ahead. Trusting him in the grind, in all of our relationships, in all that we do, in all the ways that we serve, all the ways that we enter the mess of this world to bring a little light of Jesus into it, to bring the suffering love of Jesus into this world. He gives us these moments. We see a glorious moment of Jesus in these mountaintop, as you've heard, mountaintop experiences, not so that we build tents, not that we stay away from the world, but to enter into it, and engage for the sake of Jesus. It's to give us a glimpse of his ultimate victory so we can have courage in our present battles, whatever they might be. Well, as the story continues, something else happens. We have Jesus on the mountain. We have who else again? Peter, James, and John. Okay, who else did we have? Elijah and Moses. What happens? Anybody remember? They go away. Yeah, they're gone. The story ends with Moses and Elijah no longer being there. Only Jesus remains. The point is, that's all we need. That's all Peter, James, and John needed. That's all who we need. And that's who we need to listen to. And that's who we need to follow. Amen. This time we'll continue with our offering. And I pray that Jesus blesses your offering.